It. Um, Thank you all so much for coming today and braving the code. Hope your weekends were great. I hope your new year has been great despite some of the things that have been going on in the world, which we're definitely going to be talking about. Well, I'm Jason Hoskins, State Representative for Michigan's 18th District, which covers the cities of Southfield, Lathrop Village, Farmington Hills, and Oak Park. And we have our State Senator, Jeremy Moss, who covers 11 cities and villages and townships. I could go through them all, but it covers a lot. Goes from here to Pontiac. And normally we're joined by the two other state representatives that represent the city of Southfield, Representative Steckloff and Representative Price. But both of them couldn't join us today. Little bugs going around, and so we want to make sure everyone's happy and healthy and resting. So you get Jeremy and I. So, as I said, there's certainly been a lot that has gone on since our last meeting, which has been it's been a couple of months since we've been able to do one of these, just because we do these on the fourth Monday, and that typically, as we get to the end of the year, kind of coincides with holidays, Christmas, and Thanksgiving, and so we've been able to, we've done certainly a lot in the legislature. Some might say a little bit. Also would love to tell you about that and give you an update about that, some of the things that have been happening, particularly in the House, with regards to some of the shenanigans that our speaker has been pulling. But because I wanted to start with kind of what happened this weekend in Minnesota and how that has been certainly impacting a lot, and had an impact on me, and I imagine an impact on a lot of you. And we've been certainly monitoring it here at the state in Michigan, because we obviously are concerned with how I.C.E. has been conducting themselves. We are certainly aware, and we've been working on, certainly at the state level, legislation around I.C.E. and protections around just government in general, making sure that we're not doing anything, or I.C.E. or any officials aren't doing anything that could harm us. We've also been, I know a lot of my colleagues, and certainly we've been sharing information about what to do to make sure everyone knows their rights when they are encountering I.C.E. We certainly have had activity here in Michigan, certainly not what you see in other states like Minnesota or Illinois or any other state, but we have a lot of activity happening here too. We have a lot in Pontiac. We have a lot actually on the west side of the state too. And so it's one of those things where it's not Minnesota level, but at any second it could be. And so we are starting to arm ourselves with the information that we need to protect us, and as well as our constituents here in Michigan. We wanted to talk a little bit about the legislation. I know there's been certainly legislation introduced in both the House and the Senate, revolving around, for example, I.C.E. just not wearing masks, making sure that there's 3 bills that have been introduced in the Senate. This mask.
Do you want me to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't want to step on you.
No, please go.
All right, yeah, no, so Jeremy Moss, state senator for our district. It's good to see everybody. I think that what's going on is absolutely atrocious and heinous, and it's trampling over people's rights. It's disrupting civil neighborhoods. It's a lot of the chaos is driven by federal law enforcement, not that federal law enforcement is responding to anything. So yeah, we've begun the process, to make sure that Michiganders and their rights are protected, to make sure that federal law enforcement doesn't disrupt the rights of immigrant communities and refugee communities here in the state of Michigan. So I've taken the lead with two of my colleagues to introduce 3 bills in the Michigan Senate. We had a hearing on them last fall, so we've been on top of this issue even before a lot of the inflammation has happened in Minnesota. Their Senate bills 508, 509, and 510. And they would do 3 things. My bill in the package is 510. It would ban law enforcement from wearing masks to conceal their identity. So now you could still wear masks. There are certain exemptions like conducting undercover operations or for health and other reasons like that. But what we've seen is, obviously we see ICE agents wearing masks, not wearing identifiable uniforms, not being transparent with who they are, and wearing masks to conceal their identity. There has to be trust between law enforcement and neighborhoods. There has to be some sort of agreement that the people who are patrolling our streets are recognizable, identifiable, transparent, accountable. And so in and of itself, it's a problem when people in law enforcement are concealing their identity and there's no ability to track who they are if they commit egregious actions. That's one huge problem, and we've seen this play out. Another problem is that people are posing as ICE agents. People are actually committing crimes, pretending to be ICE agents, because all they need, I guess, is a plaid shirt and a kind of a pull-up mask and a hat, and all of a sudden you can pose as an ICE agent. And people are committing crimes in other states. It's happened in New York, it's happened elsewhere, where they've posed as ICE agents, and because ICE doesn't require their officers to have identifiable uniforms, anybody can go around and say they're ICE as long as they have a mask and they look the part. So that in and of itself is a huge challenge. The 2 other bills that we've introduced are actually bills from the first Trump term. This is not anything that is far-reaching. This is not extreme. These are things that were in place 8 years ago this time. First is to allow for safe spaces, for ICE not to conduct raids unless they have a warrant. Those safe spaces would be schools, that would be places of worship, and probably most importantly, the courts. We've seen some of the most egregious actions have been where people who are residents here and are trying to continue to make their court date and are continuing to go through the right process and report as they've been called in to report, are doing everything right, and then they're being tracked by ICE at the court site as they're going to meet their appointments as prescribed by their immigration process. So we want to at least shore up that there are safe spaces where ICE cannot conduct its raids here in the state of Michigan, including those places. And then the third piece of the bill is protecting our personal private data from being used by federal law enforcement unless there is a warrant. They should not be tracking our data, they should not be mining for information unless they have an imminent threat or a warrant to do so. So those 3 bills have been introduced. There was a hearing last fall and I testified in support of the package. We are very likely looking at moving these bills out of committee as early as this week to send them to the full Senate for a vote. I will say this, I believe, and I think it's been evident by any observer, that there's just a rot in ICE from top to bottom. And I don't think that under Donald Trump and Kristi Noem I think that ICE is beyond repair. I think there are 3 irredeemable challenges that ICE has enacted. Number 1, the ICE agents are not trained like normal law enforcement. The standards are lower, the rigors are lower, and even last year they lessened them. And when, Dean Cain, who's the out-of-shape Superman actor, when he can go through the process to become an ICE agent, we're not recruiting the best of the best. And the standards are so low that they're not being trained to deal with what's going on in Minnesota. They're not being trained to de-escalate. And so the training is just ill-suited to meet this moment. Number two, they're not making our communities any safer. In fact, they're making our communities less safe. There have been 3 homicides in Minnesota, in Minneapolis I should say, in January. 2 of them were at the hands of ICE. ICE has caused 2/3 of the homicides in Minneapolis. On top of that, 2025, there were more deaths in ICE detainment than any other year in the history of the agency. They're not even being responsible for the people that they are detaining, and their welfare and their safety. So ICE is making us less safe, their outcomes are poorer. And number 3, they lie. They are telling us that what we see with our own eyes isn't actually what's happening. Whether it was Renee Good, whether it was Alex Preddy, we've seen the videos. And they're telling almost like, a dictatorship-like trained message from the state of what happened, even though the videos portray a completely different scenario. So I'm in the camp that this agency is irredeemable, that it should be dismantled, and should be rebuilt with an actual immigration enforcement agency that has oversight, accountability, and guardrails for rogue agents. So we're trying everything we can do at the state level. Obviously, we're not federal officials. We commend Senator Peters and Senator Slotkin for their statements that they're not going to increase funding to the Department of Homeland Security for the purpose of funding ICE. That's an important first step. That's an important safeguard to make sure that this agency doesn't continue to operate in a rogue manner. But there's a lot more that we can do. Federally, on the state level, we're trying to take care of what's in our realm. And that is protecting safe spaces, protecting your personal private data, and banning officers here who operate in the state of Michigan from concealing their identity. So hopefully we'll see action on this in the Senate soon. Obviously, there's challenges in the House with the House Republican majority doing many things on the other side of this issue, trying to compel our local law enforcement to work with ICE. And I will tell you, there's a big rift there. Even in Minnesota, you've seen that local law enforcement wants nothing to do with inflaming a situation like this. And we've seen our local law enforcement step up and say, we know how to handle our neighborhoods. We know how to create safe spaces, safe neighborhoods, civil societies, and ICE is not contributing to that. So we're doing everything we can at the state level, but it takes all of us to stay vigilant. It takes all of us to speak out and make our opinions known, and stand up when people egregiously violate our constitutional rights. It's an erosion of due process. It's just been shameful this last 365 days, maybe 375 days of this administration, trampling over people's rights. And I think it really depends on all of us to say, can we sustain this as a society? I don't think we can. I don't think we can tolerate this. It's not just what people do, it's can we tolerate this? And I think it takes all of us to stand up and say, enough is enough. This is absolutely heinous going on in our streets. So I'll leave that there. We can talk about this. You can ask any questions, but we do have those 3 Senate bills hopefully moving in the Senate as early as this week. 508, 509, and 510, and I'm proud. I'm working alongside. I'm one of the main sponsors, along with Senators Stephanie Chang and Mary Kavanaugh. And we've really stood up in this moment to say enough is enough. So open discussion if people want to talk about it. Yeah, Jamie.
Well, I think you're right about people not tolerating this. I'm talking family in Minneapolis,
Yeah.
and those that were a few days ago were kind of saying, I'm not going anywhere near this, staying away. No, we got to speak up.
Yeah.
It's like, just in days, from last Thursday or Friday to now, their attitude's changing.
Yeah. 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 It's horrible. It's horrible. And I'll tell you something too, watching the spin from Kristi Noem and watching the spin from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE has just been insufferable. She said the other day that no peaceful protester should be showing up to a protest with a firearm, as if to justify what officers have done. I will tell you, I was in the Michigan State Capitol in 2020 when people stormed the Capitol with firearms. to protest COVID and to protest the election and all of the things. They showed up and they were carrying assault weapons on their person to intimidate. And I don't remember the people who believe like Kristi Noem saying that they shouldn't have been there. We said they shouldn't have been there. But everybody was defending their right to come into the Capitol building and intimidate lawmakers who were either upholding the safety of Michiganders during a health crisis or protecting free and fair elections. So they were okay. But the second somebody, protests against ICE with a firearm, well, you're ripe for getting hurt. I mean, the hypocrisy is something we shouldn't tolerate either.
Gaslighting the whole country.
No question about it. No question about it, yeah.
So, I think many of us have been concerned about this even before last weekend. And on Friday, I guess, before it all happened, I went to a meeting in Huntington Woods, and I wanted to pass this on to anybody who's interested. There's an organization in Oakland County called, I wrote it down, helpnet.org, which is reaching out to families that have already been impacted by ICE in Pontiac mostly, but also in other places in Oakland County, and kind of preparing for the fact that, yes, probably ICE is coming to Oakland County sometime soon. Who knows when, but somebody told me February. I don't know where they got that information.
They were already just in Waldlake.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody was, at that meeting, was talking about Wixom.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a lot of people in Wixom, so.
I represent Pontiac. There's spottings in Pontiac
Yeah.
as well.
So I just want to encourage people to look up helpnet. Wait, did I say that right?
.org.
The helpnet.org.
Great, great. Stephanie Chang and I are going to be talking about this more on Wednesday night. I can give a little plug. It is at a Democratic Party meeting. So if you want to come as a without engaging on any campaigns, you can come. And I can get you the details after this meeting and let you know where that's at. Yeah.
I am curious if you have, what your honest assessment is of these bills' prospects of clearing the House. And then as a kind of rider on that, because my expectation is that they won't. And so given that we're just introducing bills to show what we care about, a proposal for you to maybe jog some thinking about other things, avenues, is the other angle of this is about consequences and accountability. Other angle of the conversation, an idea that I think is a good one that I've seen floated other places is implementing legislation that prevents ICE agents from taking up law enforcement positions at the state level at any point in the future. So like ICE officers who, I think the example that I saw were recently hired, would be barred from taking up state level law enforcement positions. I think that's a nice way to demonstrate where we stand on the issue, and then sort of speak to the accountability/consequence side, because it's not coming from the federal part of the country. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a...
Yeah, no, that last point's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, or I hadn't heard about that. It's an interesting concept to explore.
Chew on that,
And neither have I. And that, honestly, some of these ICE agents probably wouldn't qualify for some police agencies here, like here in Michigan. I don't think they have the training or the some of the background necessary to get through some of the training that you have to get through to be like a police officer here in Michigan and some police agencies. On your first part about the prospects of it getting through the House, it's not looking good.
Yeah.
We also there are House versions of the legislation that Senator Moss brought up too, that have been introduced, have not gone anywhere. There are also other pieces of legislation that we've introduced, basically around making sure that if you are detained, you have a legal basis for for being detained. It's something that already exists, and unfortunately in this time, we have to reiterate that in legislation that for some reason, you're snatched up by ICE and potentially disappeared, that you have to have a legal basis for it, that you just can't waive a piece of paper that doesn't have the full weight of law behind it and just take people without legal cause. So we also have legislation around that in the House that also has yet to move.
Correct.
But this is also, there's going to be a time when, certainly here in Michigan, that I think things will probably change. And it's good to have this legislation ready for when that change comes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because these are things that I think for us, certainly for Jeremy and I, are kind of common sense and no-brainers, especially with if you're wearing a mask and all that, it's not just, the issues of trust and accountability that you want the citizens that are being served by any law enforcement agency. It is the issues of, well, somebody can just put on an ICE outfit and then put on a mask and do God knows what and just say they're ICE.
And they have been.
Yeah. And so I hope that if and when there's a change next year, that we'll have these bills ready to go. Obviously, we're not the only place that has done this, and of course many places around the country have passed legislation like this already. So it's good to already see what they've done, make sure it's vetted. We want to make sure that if we do this, we're doing it right here in Michigan. And hopefully, when the time comes, we will put a lot of this legislation forward.
Are some of the Republicans at all starting to see the hypocrisy when the January 6th guys showed up with guns and nobody did anything to them? Or the other stuff that is, just Kristi Noem's, saying this guy was a domestic terrorist and he was awful, he was out there to shoot him, and are they realizing that this stuff is there a line that they're getting close to crossing, that they're willing to say, yeah, enough is enough?
So
Or some of them?
to put these two questions together, if we can pass these bills out of the Senate and they lay in the House, then we can get a pressure campaign on Republicans. Then you can actually see where they are on this issue, see where they're at. Force them to take a position. Force them to take a position that they'll have to defend. So I haven't seen any of our Republican colleagues speak out on any of this.
I have not either.
But the idea is if we can get these bills first up for a vote in the Senate and see where they will pass with a Democratic majority, but see if we can get some Republican colleagues to say, enough is enough, or these are common sense, these are very precise bills that tackle individual problems that I hope we can all agree on, and hopefully get some Republican votes on that. And then when it gets to the House, we can see, call your state representative and see where they are on this issue. Would they support it? Would they not support it? And then force them to defend their position either way. I haven't seen any of our Republican colleagues speak out on it, though. No.
No, not at this level.
How much hope do you have for the courts to do anything?
Yeah, I'll leave it to the lawyer to talk about that.
This our
Yeah.
courts or federal courts?
Well, even Minnesota is going more to the federal courts.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume, but it could be either.
I will say.
I'm not an attorney.
So I will say that a lot of the court challenges to the Trump administration, whenever it has gone against the Trump administration, a lot of times they have complied. You don't typically hear about that, but from time to time they do comply. And there are multiple cases that are actually happening right now in Minnesota, dealing with people who have, again, been illegally detained, there was a case where someone was detained, taken to, they were sent to Texas after the court said that they should be released. And I'm curious to see what will happen. Most of the time, they are in fact released. You know, we have these terrible situations where they're sent to Texas or sent to New Orleans and then sent to
El Salvador.
yes. And a lot of times for cases like that, they've complied. You know, I'm not sure. I will say, so to answer your question, I actually I'm feeling pretty good about a lot of the court cases and the courts in general. They are still holding. But, you know, there's some, when the big issues come up, when the overarching issues come up, we'll see. A lot of these cases, there are cases playing out right now in the US Supreme Court. I'm curious to see where they go. There's a case specifically about ICE right now in the Supreme Court. So we'll see how that goes. But I will say, courts are they're still hanging in there.
In fact, I just heard, I didn't have time, I actually just drove in from Lake Michigan here today, but I was told that one of the, they were appealing it, a lower court decision, and they decided not to hear it.
Yeah.
Kind of turned it down, so that's kind of a positive.
Yeah, and they'll probably appeal it to the
But
next
they'll probably
level.
go
There's a
higher
next
and
level.
stuff, but at least show some direction from the courts.
Anything else on this topic? Obviously, it's a fluid situation. I mean, it seems like every day something changes. We're very vigilant of what's happening here in Michigan. You know, our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, pulls no punches and is going to be forcefully out there ensuring that the rule of law is followed in due process and will, you know, enact her office with its full authority to protect Michiganders' rights. So, you know, we're vigilant. It's a horrible situation, what's going on in Minnesota. Yeah.
We have a constitution, we have laws in place, federal and state, local. And the courts are just chasing these people that are doing things against all those things that are already in place.
Yeah.
They're already in place.
Yeah.
And yet they're doing whatever the hell they want to do.
Yeah.
And now the courts are chasing it. So the courts are like, I don't know what the answer is, but other than to get rid of these people.
Yeah. Elections have consequences,
They do
both in
indeed.
2024, but also in 2026.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
do you know any specific cases from the Pontiac area that we actually?
I've heard anecdotal evidence. I represent Pontiac, so I'm plugged in with a lot of Pontiac community members, especially online, and I'll see Facebook posts, ice spotting here, and so people are vigilant about it. I haven't heard of anything that has risen to the level of alarm, but I mean, I know that they're conducting, ice activities in Pontiac. So I haven't heard of anything, specific instance that has elevated to the level of what we're seeing in Minnesota. All right, we can make another shift to another big topic that's a little bit more inside baseball, but affects all of us nonetheless. I'll tee it up a little bit, but most of this action's happened in the House. So 2 years ago, we passed a budget. It was a good budget. I voted for it. I got a lot of good things in there. And it was a balanced budget, and it was supported by a majority of the House and a majority of the Senate, and the governor signed it into law. And as many of you have known since the 4th grade, or when you watched Schoolhouse Rock, that's how a law is created. And so there's this very narrow provision that the Speaker of the House abused over November, December to relitigate and reopen and renegotiate that budget. Essentially, if there are projects that departments are supposed to fund, so if there's a road project and that road project comes through is specifically outlined and the Department of Transportation is supposed to get that money out the door, the legislature does have oversight over, did you get that money out the door? Did it go to where it belonged? What were the outcomes of that? And if the legislature does not agree with how the department is expending these dollars, then the legislature can, one majority in one chamber, in one committee, can stop those dollars from going out the door. So we have two appropriations committees. We have an appropriations committee in the House, we have an appropriations committee in the Senate. And if one majority in one of those committees decides to cancel a project, the law allows it to happen. It's happened rarely, but there are instances here and there where a project needs more oversight, there's some questions about it, and a particular committee can look at it. What Matt Hall did is he canceled every single project in the budget from 2 years ago without a hearing, without deliberation, without public comment, across the board. And it totaled $645 million of investment in our communities that he and this one committee, in a unilateral attempt to renegotiate a budget that was passed by a majority 2 years ago, he wiped it all away. Attorney General comes in and says, you know what, the law that he uses was unconstitutional. There should not be one committee of one chamber being able to supersede a majority decision and a governor's signature. So now this is being fought out in courts, but I want to talk about some of the things that were in that $645 million batch that with one wave of a wand, Matt Hall canceled. Wigs for kids with cancer. There's this organization called Wigs for Kids, and they got a grant in the budget, and that grant was being expended to produce wigs for kids with cancer. Matt Hall canceled that. Fire trucks in other communities. I think that's not waste, fraud, and abuse. Communities need fire trucks. Matt Hall canceled those. Infrastructure projects. Funding to the Holocaust Museum. Funding for other communities, public safety and security. What more was in that? I mean,
funding for pregnant moms.
Yeah.
With the RX Kids program, which is a program that funds, provides funding for moms, pregnant moms for up to a year after they give birth. And this is something that is an extraordinary program. It takes children out of poverty, proven to lift children out of poverty. And it's $500 a month. And it was canceled. It was canceled with the wave of a wand. We also had some hits to projects that were in our district. In Lathrop Village, there was some of the infrastructure funding. We had funding for water main repairs that it takes more than a year to sometimes get these things figured out. And they were working on engineering for that project, and just out of nowhere, just got cut. And I'm sure there are other projects in Senator Moss's district. That was the only one that hit us. We both represent Lathrop Village, so that was the one that got us both. But it is the fact that this was done, out of nowhere. One day we came in, we were hearing rumblings about this, and next thing we knew, they were voting on it without any hearings, without any warnings to any of the stakeholders, any of the communities, any of the nonprofits, any of the people who want to know, like, hey, we are, this organization that gives the wigs, the kids, they put in the orders. They were like, we are doing this.
The orders were actually delayed because of Trump's tariff policies. So, Wigs for Kids with Cancer, this is literally the brass tacks of what happened. Wigs for Kids with Cancer gets a grant in the budget to help these kids, and ensure their dignity while they're going through this horrendous cancer treatment. They put in an order. Trump's tariff policies have delayed the order and have made this more expensive, so they're continuing to negotiate to get these wigs in. Matt Hall says, well, you haven't spent all your money, so I'm canceling all of the money. And at the end of the day, these kids don't get their wigs as they're going through cancer treatment. And all of this is under the guise of Matt Hall calling these projects waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's a line from the federal level. Matt Hall is a Trump wannabe. And so, you know, it's cruel. It's cruel to deem kids with cancer a product of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Or the Holocaust
Or the Holocaust Museum, or Lathrop Village water mains, or fire trucks in Hamtramck. I mean, you can name things over and over again that have impacted every community. So I can tell you I'm telling you this definitively, I'm frustrated and aggravated, but I even strip this of its partisanship. There are Republicans in the House who have spoken out against this. So they don't even agree with their own leadership in the brazen way that they've stolen money from our communities around the state. So, you know, I think this guy's out of control, the Speaker of the House. He operates with impunity. We have to get a check on the things that he does. And ultimately, you know, some of his actions in the name of kind of looking like a Trumpian figure are hurting people in our communities, and it's a shame.
So what are you going to do to get rid of them as speaker, at least?
Elections have consequences, and 2026 is upon us.
That's a long way away.
That's the way that we change who's in charge. That is the way that we change who's in charge. The Speaker of the House is chosen by the majority. They've chosen him to serve as Speaker this term. The Senate is a backstop on 99.9% of the damage that he inflicts. This is one that there was this narrow law that the Attorney General has declared is not even constitutional to begin with. And so now it's being fought in the courts. So there is court action to try and restore this $645 million of investment in all of our communities.
Just a quick comment about the children in the WIGs, and I didn't deal directly with that, but I did very involved in another program more with congenital defects. And making a difference in a kid like that was absolute, I just almost couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, that'll work, it'll help. I was blown away about how much it helped.
Sure. Sure. So, you know, if it's not chaos in the federal level, it's chaos at the state level. You know, I keep portraying it as we're in this bad era. We will get to the other side of this era. We will. The question is, what do our institutions look like? Did they hold? Were they strong? How much repair did they need? And so we're in this fight now to make sure that they do hold. Yeah.
With all of that, with the budget, is he trying to, like, does he have the power to, like, rewrite parts of it, or it's fully just, like, canceling those services?
Yeah. So the idea behind this law, which again the Attorney General has said is unconstitutional, is to provide oversight over these departments. It's to say, okay, why didn't this grant go out? We have questions about it. You know, only half of it was funded. What happened to the other half? Those conversations weren't even had. They held a hearing, and in 15 minutes, they just canceled every single one of these grants without even asking the circumstances. So, like, they could have asked, why didn't the Full Wigs for Kids money go out? Oh, well, they placed their order's on delay. It's because of they didn't even ask those questions. And so this law is about 40 years old and has never been challenged because it's never been used in the way that Matt Hall has used it. And so the Attorney General has looked back and said, this law shouldn't have even been called constitutional to begin with, because it really allows one committee in one chamber to essentially have veto power over something that has been passed by a majority in the Senate and a majority in the House and signed by the governor. And that supersedes the role of the legislature, and the Attorney General said that that is unconstitutional. I don't know if I answered your question, but you know, there was logic behind the law. It has been abused, and because it's been abused in this way, there's been an examination of whether or not it was even written constitutionally to begin with. The Attorney General says no. So now it's in the courts. We'll find out. The House is suing to say no, it is constitutional. So, you know, we've won in the courts against some of the other egregious actions that the Republican majority has done in the House. So we hope that the Attorney General's opinion will hold on this.
It's frustrating. It's like what we're seeing federally too.
It is.
Some of these
It's very, very
cracks you
frustrating.
didn't realize were there until people abuse them.
You got it. You got it. You know, I get skills that I never asked for every single day. I learn things that I never thought I needed to learn every single day in the legislature. But I hope to put them to continuing good use. Yeah. Yeah.
Different topic.
We can change topics. We're with two heavy topics.
What is your opinion of all of these AI developments, all in southeastern Michigan? There's like 10 of them or more.
Yeah, you're talking about data centers?
Data centers.
Yeah. You
Does
know,
that make sense that there's so many in this area?
so we passed legislation previously in the term that has the strongest safeguards of any state in the country with regards to data centers. And I think there are two main principles that we have to protect when determining whether or not a data center should come to our community. First, to even rewind, we all use AI. I think there are definitely ways to regulate it, but it's not going anywhere. If you use ChatGPT, you are part of the problem. But I'm not going to take a survey, but I think most hands would go up. So AI is here. What can we do to safeguard against AI abuse, and what can we do to safeguard our environment from these data centers? So two main things that I think we have to hold as principles. Number one, none of the costs can be passed on to the ratepayer. These sites take up a lot of energy, they take up a lot of grid usage. We should not be paying for that. So that's actually in the law that we passed, that if a data center comes to a community, the cost cannot be put on the ratepayers like you and me. Number two is we cannot erode, damage, or otherwise harm our water supply. That's kind of a lot of what resources are used up in these data centers is our water supply. And there has to be a plan, if any data center comes to town, on how the water supply is going to be replenished, how it's not going to be eroded, how it's not going to be damaged. And I think those are the two core principles for any data center that should want to look at Michigan. So there was one in Southfield. There's actually like five already in Southfield. 123 Net, which is right up the road, that's existed for years and years and years as a data center.
Yeah,
so there's small ones, yeah, nothing like this Celine project, which was this huge thing. So there are about 5 data centers already in Southfield. I know that they just approved on a 5-2 vote a new data center, a smaller one. I mean, the question is, it's all of us. What are we going to reconcile? Do we want to get rid of AI? Do we want to get rid of ChatGPT? And do we want to get rid of maybe appropriate and helpful usages of AI? I think the answer is no.
They should be spread out a little bit more and not concentrated in one area.
Sure. So, we're not going to...
in Arizona, maybe they are, just as many, but...
Yeah, so we're not going to get rid of that. The question is okay, if they're coming. But I'll also say this, again, if they're done appropriately, if they protect the ratepayer, if they don't damage our water supply, they create good union-paying jobs. And so a lot of our tradespeople are going to be put to work as a result of some of these things coming into Michigan. So if it's done appropriately, if it protects certain safeguards that we want to uphold, this could be a good job producer here in the state of Michigan.
Is that construction?
Construction, yeah, and operations. Yeah, you talk to our union building trades folks and skilled trades folks. If we get it right and we allow for the most appropriate and safeguards in place to welcome in a data center, union folks are eager to work on those job sites.
Well, sure, but like a vast minority of that is going to be permanent, right? It's not. Those jobs are not permanent. That's my point.
Yeah, I mean that's typically the case with skilled trades work.
Just making sure I understand you.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, not only the permanent jobs that they have at the center, but the things created because of the center are actually going to help growth.
So I know there's a lot of this conversation in the air, and the questions are appropriate. I think we should be concerned. This is kind of a new sector, a new thing that's coming in. And we can always go back and strengthen the law, but we passed a law in Michigan earlier in the term with the strongest safeguards of any state that has a data center policy.
And I think there's also in that law too, we give the local communities a lot of the control. And we're starting to see many of the communities now are, I think a lot of people feel like data centers are happening to them, and they don't have a lot of say because they're coming so fast. And we're starting to see a lot of communities now, put moratoriums in place, so the conversations can be had about, okay, how are you protecting ratepayers? How is this going to hurt, or is this going to have any impact on our energy grid? What are you going to do with the water? Is it a closed loop system?
Transportation, I guess, even, in the infrastructure, and protecting wetlands and all of that other stuff
Yep.
that comes along with a big development.
All valid questions. Very valid questions that have been coming up as data centers have started to come into Michigan, and people they want to have time to be able to go over things and be able to answer questions, and we're certainly aware of that. And as we are going throughout the year and we're going throughout these processes, if there's something that needs to be changed at the state level, I think a lot of us are open to that. I think we did do a good job when we did pass the legislation, initially putting in those safeguards. But if there are other things that we potentially need to look at, I know I'm happy to look at that. I know a lot of our friends, just like Jeremy was saying, a lot of our friends in the construction trades, when you ask about some of the concerns, they will tell you, especially when it deals with water, that a lot of the things, there are a lot of protections in place, and they wouldn't want to work on things that will potentially harm communities, because they live here too. So they don't want to have to deal with that either. But I also, these data centers are going to potentially bring a lot of jobs. Some of the trades that I've talked to said they almost don't have enough people to be able to handle the potential amount of jobs. So it is an evolving thing that we are all looking at, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything in the safest way, because AI is not going anywhere. And even as we are getting deeper into that conversation too, there's a lot of things that we're doing. There's a lot of legislation that's already been introduced to put in some safeguards around AI when it comes to healthcare and health data. There's legislation that's been introduced around that, making sure that there's something called dynamic pricing that is used sometimes in some stores, where it basically will adapt. If it's cold outside and there's a storm coming, there are stores that have the thing that have the prices
The
will
shovels
go
are
up.
gonna go up.
Go up because it's like, oh, you're probably going to need more water. You're probably going to need things to keep you warm. So you'll raise the price up and then it'll lower it when things go down. So we have legislation that bans that. I am actually working on legislation that will protect your image and likeness. This doesn't typically come up with most people, but it comes up a lot with kind of like celebrities. So if you pass away, and
Like
then,
Jason Hoskins.
sure. If I pass away and then, I don't know, somebody wants to use my voice or something like that, we will now have legislation that protects that. And so you can't just use it. Or if you're Robin Williams, or you're somebody else who you don't want to have your voice being used forever and ever without your estate's permission. There's a lot of things that we're starting to look at now. AI the technology is so new and is so evolving that states that have tried to put in legislation, kind of more comprehensive things, by the time they go through the process, the legislation is out of date, and then they have to do more things. And I've seen it around in Colorado. They tried to do a big comprehensive bill, and they had to delay it multiple times. They are part-time legislature, so they only meet for a few months in the beginning of a year every year. But they've had to delay it multiple times because there's so many things that have come up, so many, some of the metrics that they've been using, like, oh, it has to have so much, X amount of data. Well, by the time they finish the process, that's too small. You have to change the numbers. You have to do so many other things. Like, it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. So we're all watching it because, we all have nightmare scenarios of like, computers taking over. There's literally,
It's still pretty dumb,
yeah, there's the.
so far.
Yeah, well, there's generative AI, that is like your chat GPT, and it
Well,
is,
my husband's taking AI at Lawrence Tech right now.
no, yeah, oh, it's a good place to take it, highly recommend. And then there's AI that's basically like, like robots, and that is something that is, it is gonna be used at some point in like Amazon, where they're gonna be robots that carry things off of shelves, and that's like a lot of self-driving cars too. And those are, there's a lot of protections that we're gonna have to put in place around many of that, and making sure that we're not displacing workers, and making sure that we want to it's my vision of AI, is making sure that people are, you have time to be creative and do thoughtful things, and the mundane things can be done with AI, not the reverse. I don't want, ChatGPT to take away a writer or a singer's, job, or just putting together a script, because it can. Like, I want it to be able to do other things, so the real creatives can come in and do the, create, the great works of our time.
Just to give you an example, all three of my kids now are very involved with AI. One for the state of Washington, doing a whole project that they're doing with their seniors, to support their seniors. Another one with other things, more in energy. And my daughter now is in charge of a whole data and analytics in healthcare. And all using AI like you wouldn't believe.
We actually banned ChatGPT from Senate usage. And it's funny, since we banned it, one senator doesn't have as much to say on the Senate floor as he used to. So there's a good thing by banning AI as well, by banning ChatGPT as well.
Yeah, but this is very different than ChatGPT.
Yeah, I know.
Developing those processes to.
I know. I just want to get the joke in.
I appreciate that.
All right, we're closing on an hour. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up? Yeah.
I don't use a lot of any of the social media, Facebook, or...
You're better off for it.
I think I am. But your invitation to this meeting required us to respond using one of these methods, and I picked Facebook.
Yeah.
And so I had to create a Facebook account, which I did, and I was able to, I think, register my appearance here today. And then Facebook sent me an email and said that I was being permanently banned because I didn't comply with community standards. So I'm a pretty stand-up guy. Never been
You seem like one.
arrested. Kind of. So I just, just throwing it out there, let you know. And then I
Fair enough.
It's good to
RSVP is
know.
also optional. So you can delete your whole Facebook account. So if you get the emails to come to our event,
And use it,
RSVP is just so we can kind of get a sense of how many people are coming. But you can come regardless of RSVP. How about that?
I haven't missed Facebook up till now, so I think I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
I quit.
You can be a Facebook user for a week and then never see it again. That's fine with me. Yeah, we'll come here and then we'll go back to you, Jamie. Yeah, you, Susan. Yeah.
Okay, so I've been involved with a bunch of different people the last year, I would say, since all of these things since all the politics. What I want to tell you about is something positive to think for the end of the summer, Labor Day 2026. We're planning to have a Labor Day rally in Oak Park. And the idea of this is to promote and recognize the contributions of the American worker, have a fun activity, a place for people to come together, and especially to promote the vote, to promote registration, to promote people coming out and being active in the community. Because guess what? There's an election in November. So if
I've heard
you're-
that.
Yeah, had you heard?
Both of you, I think,
So
have heard that.
this is like a little jump on the election and a positive way to bring people together and keep us encouraging and going forward. So if you're interested in this, I have a QR code, and also you can look up oakparklaborday.com. So anybody wants to do the QR thing, I got that here. But I just want you to think positive for the end of the summer. We're gonna have fun together on Labor Day, so. Thanks.
Great.
On a different topic, out in the lobby is a lady, Sarah, who is doing a whole project with the city of Southfield, but it's in multiple communities now as far as collecting
Compost.
food scraps and everything. There's containers out there and such. She would like to meet and talk to both of you. I think, what's your guy's?
Nathan.
Nathan went over, I mentioned it to him, so I think he went over to talk to her. But she has some information. You don't have to take a container tonight, but you can go check it out. Just, I'm kind of a big advocate for our environment and Mother Earth. So,
Good.
that's it.
Good. Anything else? If you missed anything or you really want to hear from me again, you just can't get enough, guess what? We're doing this again next week in Bloomfield. So I'll be joined with the Bloomfield area state representatives a week from tonight at the Bloomfield Library, same time, 5:30. You'll be experts on the $645 million. You'll know more than the people who are going to come.
Sam, speaking, she was,
Sam will probably be there. Sam was under the weather tonight, so she'll be there hopefully. So you'll be able to know more than anybody in the audience now that you got a head start, a preview of everything. If there aren't any more questions, we appreciate your attentiveness. We'll stick around for some one-on-one questions. Yeah.